Hi there, I'm Eitan and welcome back to the Wix Wiz. Today is going to be a code-along tutorial where we are going to build a notification system using Velo and Wix so that if, for example, we send out a general notification, then people will both get this kind of update on the bottom and you see this notification indicator updating on top, and also sending out user-specific notifications that only go out to specific users. And then the users can go and see all of their previous notifications and even click a CTA to go to a certain page of the website where they can see the content that's relevant to that notification. So if you're interested in learning how to do all that and more, let's get started. Okay, so before we do anything, let's start by scoping out the project. And that essentially means deciding what the features that we want to include in this notification system are. So what I'm going to do for that is I'm just going to add here in the backend, I'm just going to add a random file. And this is going to be the scope. And I'm just going to do .text, a regular text file, just so I can keep some notes and refer back to it as we progress with the project. And I'm going to be flexible with the scope. I mean, if I think of something as we're creating this project that I think would either be a good feature or I see that time is running out and we don't manage to cover one thing, then that's totally fine. But I do recommend doing this before you start building something out because it could just help you build the architecture of your project a little better and think of kind of blind spots that you might miss if you just dive straight in. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating a notification system. Notification system. And what the objective of this system will be to notify users about two different things. One is general notifications, like for example, new blog post, new event, okay, general site things that happen that are relevant to anybody, and user-specific notifications. And this might be for a single user, and it might be for a group of users. And in terms of where I'm going to store all these, so we're going to need a notifications collection where we're going to store the notifications. And what's going to happen is that each time we want to create a notification, we'll have a backend API that will create a notification. Notification. By the end of the video, I'll know how to spell it correctly, sorry. Notification. And when we create a notification, it should include a few things. So we're going to want to have, let's say, a title for the notification. We'll have some content, like text, that will be shown as part of the notification. We might want to have an image, but I don't want to complicate it that much, so we'll leave image out for now. We're going to have the recipient. And as we said, this recipient can be either everybody on the site or it can be a specific user. So we might even want to split this into two things, which is type and then possibly have like an array with the actual recipients. We can think about that a little more later on. And we might also want to have an action. So this action would probably include a call to action. Okay, so some kind of text that would be the call to action. And it probably would have a URL which goes to a specific place on the website. So for example, you get a notification, oh, there's a new blog post, then you'll have a button in that notification that you can click and go to that blog post. Okay, so that's kind of what I'm talking about in terms of action. And I think that that looks good for now. I'll probably think of one or two more things as we're planning, but that looks good for now. So once we've created that notification, we're going to want to do several things. So we'll want to notify the recipients. And this is where we're going to be using Wix Realtime. And we are going to want to, let's see, except for notify the recipient. So another feature you might add would be, let's say, to send out a triggered email. To be honest, I don't know if we'll have time for that, but that's something you might want to think of. And I'll try and mention how it would be done if we did go for that option. So we want to notify recipients. So this Wix Realtime will be relevant for recipients that are online, but we also need to think about how do we notify offline recipients. And I'm not talking about this triggered email, I'm talking about when they return to the website and I want them to see some indication that they have notifications waiting for them. Waiting notifications. So that's something we're going to have to think about how we're going to do. Okay, so we're going to notify the recipients. And another element that I'm going to want to have is a notifications page. And we're just going to display a repeater with users notifications, which can include both general notifications and individual notifications. So those will all be mixed together within this notifications page. And from this notifications page, they'll be able to go and see those relevant call to actions. One more thing that I missed here in terms of notifying the recipients. So we're going to want to have a indication. So like a little red dot, let's say, that they have a new notification. Do we want to display how many notifications they have that are unread? And that could be also an interesting point for here. So we could have read and unread, and that would have to be user specific. So we could have here property read, and that would be, let's say, an array of all the members that read the notification. But if your site has millions of people, then that might get a little sticky. In general, this whole architecture, where essentially we have one notification item per notification that's sent out, has some issues. So, for example, you can have a lot of notifications very quickly, especially now that Wix is starting to crack down on the amount of items that you can have in databases based on certain plans. So this collection can get very big very quickly. So depending on the size of your site, you might want to think of a different architecture. For example, storing notification information with specific members inside like an object or an array that's stored within that specific member. I'll add that kind of as a question here. Store notifications with members. And I don't think I'm going to take this approach in this tutorial, just because I think that this is a slightly more simple and clear approach in terms of kind of understanding how everything works. And I think that for a reasonably sized site, like if you're expecting a few hundred users, then I think that that is a completely reasonable architecture. If you have more, then you might want to think about something else. Okay, so we talked about an indication, and there's one more indication that I want to demonstrate, and that is an indication that is kind of like the Facebook style indication. So, on the bottom of the screen, you'll see like a pop-up that says, let's say, the title and the content. And then when you click on it, it'll go to your notifications page. So, like full length notification bottom of screen. Okay, so that's pretty much the architecture. And we're going to have one more thing, which will be our testing page. And this is just going to be a page with essentially two buttons. So one button is going to send out general notification, and one is going to send out user specific notification. And I think that that should be good. Again, as I said, maybe we'll think of some more things as we go, but this is going to be the scope of the project for now. So if you got this down, then we're ready to hop in. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to start with is building our notifications collection. So I'm going to go here to my collections and I'm going to create a new collection. And I'm going to call it here notifications. And I'm going to go ahead and click create. And so we already have a title field that comes as a default. So here we're going to add a text field that's going to be content. And we are going to be adding in some more things, which I already forgot. And that's why it's good that we wrote down the scope. So we're going to have the recipients. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to separate type into a separate field. Okay. So I'm going to go over here and say type, and this will be type, and it'll be here for the help text. I'll say it'll be either user, group, user, group, or general. Let's say general or users. So like this means that everybody on the website, all members on the website can see this notification, and this will mean that it's user specific. Or let's write private. That's a better one. Private sounds good. Okay, so let's do that. And here we're going to add in an array. Array, where are you? Array. And this is going to be the recipients. Recipients, obviously I spelled that wrong. Awesome. Recipients. And the way it will work is that this will either be empty or it'll be an array of the people who can view this notification. So if the type will be general, then everybody will be able to see this notification regardless of whatever's in this recipient's field. If the type is private, then only member IDs that are inside of this recipient's field will be able to see the notification. So that's how I'm going to set it up for now. And we're going to have the action. So let's go over here and, whoops. Technically, I could do this as an object field. So I could add in an object field. I'm purposely flattening out the database just to make it a little more clear for the tutorial. So these are things that I might have grouped together under objects in like a regular project, but here just for visual, like to make it a little more visual and comprehensible, I'm going to make it as flat as possible. So I'm not going to choose an object field type. I'm going to choose text, and I'm going to call this CTA. And it's not a bad approach. Like it's totally fine. Like there's nothing inherently wrong with how I'm doing it now. It's just maybe a little flat. So here, and this will be a URL. Okay. So we have for our action, CTA and URL. And we also have this read by property, which again, as I said, can get a little sticky, but let's add it in just in case we decide to play with that later on. So I'm going to add that in, and that's also going to be an array. Let's put an array here and choose the field type, and this will be read by. Okay, awesome. So now that we have that set up, let's set up our API, which will actually create one of these notifications. So I'm going to go here into the backend, and I'm going to create a new web module, and we'll call it notifications. And let me go ahead and zoom in before I forget so that you can see everything that I'm doing. And we're going to be creating our API to create notifications. And we might need we'll need also another API to mark as read and stuff like that. But for now, let's assume that once a notification is created, it's created and we're not going to be doing any updates on it for now. So, excuse me. So I'm going to write here export. and this is going to be an asynchronous function. And let's call it create notification. I think I spelled it right. Okay, and we're going to import Wix data. And here we're going to take in the notification info. And I'm just going to write here kind of like an outline of what that notification info is, just so we can see it. And it's essentially going to be an object, notification info. And there's actually real ways to do this using, what's it called? JS doc, I think it's called. But for now, I'm just going to write it as a memo so I can see for myself. And we know that we need a title. We know that we need content. We know that we need, let's see. We know that we are going to need the CTA. We're going to need the type. We're going to need the read by will just be an empty read by. That'll be an empty array. And we're going to need the URL. And we're going to need the recipients. Let me copy it from here. Recipients. Okay, let's just make it a little more orderly. So we'll put this over here because these two are associated. And these two are associated. And then we have this. Awesome. So this is the structure. This is what we're expecting to receive here in this notification info. And this is something that we could set up technically in the front end. This is the only security vulnerability, I think, in terms of how we determine the recipients. So this is one thing that I would try and maybe think about how I would do from the back end. But as I do also with other projects, sometimes I just try and do this most simple thing first and then deal with certain complexities later on so that once I already have some of the project built out. So here, essentially what we're going to be doing is we're just going to be inserting into the database. So we're going to say const inserted notification equals to await Wix data dot insert. And here we're going to have the collection ID, which is notifications. And we're going to have notification info. And we're going to suppress auth, just in case later on I change the permissions here about who can read, write, etc. Let me do that now, actually, before I forget. So I'm going to be setting all of these permissions and privacy. Everything is going to be admin. So I'm going to do complete control through the APIs that I build in the back end. No access to this collection at all on the front end directly. So that's why I need that suppress auth over there. Awesome. So we have our inserted notification, and then we can just console.log inserted notification, new notification, and we can just also return it to the front end, return inserted notification, just in case I want to do something with it later. Let's add in some error handling as well. Let's add in a try catch. And for now, I'm just going to log if there's an error, console.log, error, creating notification, and we're going to have the error. Awesome. So that is our create notification API. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to build out that front-end test page so we can actually create notifications using this API. So I'm going to copy over this notification info, and I'm going to create a new page, or actually, I'm just going to use the home page. The home page will be the test page, and I'm going to create two buttons here. So let's add a button, And let's add another button. I'll add two different colors just for clarity's sake. Okay, so this will be a general notification. And this will be our user specific notification. Okay, and now let's talk about how we're going to do this. So let's add names for each of these buttons. So this is going to be our general notification notification button. And this will be our user notification button. And each one of these, we're going to create an on-click event that will essentially simulate an event that sends out the notification. So in real life, I mean, you can determine what the notifications, what the triggers are for a certain notification. So let's say if you're going to be triggering a notification on a blog post, then you're going to want to fire off this general notification when a blog post is posted. So that would be in the backend events for blog post, let's say. If you want to fire a notification when somebody clicks a contact me button on a specific user's member profile, then that would be something more similar to the user specific notification. So these two buttons are just simulations. Obviously on your site, you're not just going to have two random buttons that give people notifications. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to create two functions. So let's start with async function send general notification. And we'll have another function which will be send user specific notification. Whoops, and that's going to be a function, of course. Function. Awesome. And these are going to fire when we click the respective buttons. So let me just add those already to the buttons. So let's select user notification button and the general button. And on click, it's going to send a general notification. And this on click is going to send a user specific notification. And now I can paste the structure of my notifications over here. And here we'll say const new notification equals, and we'll open up an object. And let me just copy this over. So the title, let's say, is example notification. And here we're going to say you have a new note. This, oh, no, sorry. Let's say this is a general notification. And the type is going to be general. And the recipients, either we can just leave this as null. We could also leave it as an empty array. It doesn't really matter because we're just going to ignore this field whenever we see that the type is general. And here in terms of CTA, let's just have here click me. And for URL, let's have it go to the home page of the website. So let me go ahead. Have I published this site already? Let me see. No. I'm going to go ahead and publish the site in its very unfinished form. And I'm just going to copy over the URL and put that right over there. So don't get confused that it says notifications here. This is just the name of the website. Okay, this is the domain. It's a free site. And the read by is going to be empty. And here now what I'm going to do is I'm going to import. Let's import create notification from backend/notifications. And here we're going to just say const notification equals to await. And this I'm going to change to say notification info. I'm going to try and keep the language as consistent as possible throughout the project. And I often do this. I name something one thing in the beginning, and then as I think of a better name later on, I'll change it either just to improve, comprehensibility or to improve the general alignment of names throughout the project. So here we have notification info. So we're just going to await create notification, pass in the notification info, and we can just console.log notification. And here we're going to have notification. And for our user-specific notification, we're going to do something very similar, but I'm going to get to that a bit later once I add a few members to this website. So currently there aren't any members on the website, so I'm going to need to create a few fake members in order to really build this part out. But this general notification should be a good enough start for us to do some testing. So let me go ahead and publish that. And whoops, let's go view the site. And here I am on the home page. And I'm going to click general notification. And we created our notification. Okay, so far so good. It's working. And now we can move forward and talk about some of the other things that are supposed to happen once a notification is sent out. So the first thing that we said we want to happen is that we want to notify users about it. And we discussed two ways that we're going to notify users. So let me set up those two different indications for a new notification. Okay, so in terms of indications of notifications, we said that there were going to be two ways to display. One is going to be kind of like a bubble style notification up here in the header. So let me add in a box and I'll look for a nice circle. That looks great. That is a very big notification. So yeah, let's just kind of make that a little smaller. And it's orange, but orange is also a good color. So I'm just going to put that right over there. And I'm going to put a number inside. Again, I don't know if we'll get to that point where we actually do the calculations of the numbers in this tutorial, but I'm going to put it there as a sign of being hopeful. And let's put that right over there. So this is just going to be a number. Start off with like 0. And let's center that and make it a bit smaller. And I'm going to put it right here inside of the box as kind of an indicator of how many notifications we have. Okay, so this is our notification indicator box. And we're also going to add another indication, which is also going to be a box. And let's choose this with the rounded edges. It's not going to be in the header. It's going to be down over here. Let's make it a little smaller. And let's change the design a little bit. I really want to make it look a bit like that Facebook style one. So let's make it like that. And the fill color will be kind of like even a black, but I'm going to make it maybe 80% in terms of the opacity. And here we're just going to have text. And I'm just going to add one paragraph and put it over here in the box. And this is going to be the notification text. And I'll center it and make it white so that we can actually see it. Awesome. And this I'm going to be pinning to the screen. So let's go over here and do pin to screen, and it's going to be right over here on the bottom. Okay. And it's always going to be hidden by default. And we're only going to show it when we actually get a notification. And the same is true for this container box. So this is going to be hidden by default, and we're going to show it whenever there is a new notification or there are active notifications for that member when they visit the website. Okay, so those are the two indicators that I'm going to put. I think that's pretty classic in terms of notifications, modern notification standards. Awesome. So now what we have to do is we have to show these two indicators when a new notification comes in. And in order to do that, we are going to be using Wix Realtime. So let's start off by setting up the publish function for Wix Realtime. I'm gonna do some explaining, but I do have a tutorial specifically about Wix Realtime, so I'm gonna assume some knowledge. This isn't gonna be a real-time tutorial, but it's more of like a real-time implementation example. So I'm going to copy over the publish function over here from Wix backend. Sorry, from the Wix documentation, and I'm going to be putting it inside of the backend of our website. So I'm going to go here and call this real time, and I'm going to paste what I copied over here. And let me zoom in. Awesome. So essentially what this publish function does is it sends a message to all of the subscribers who are subscribed to a specific channel. So let's wrap this in a function first. So I'm going to say async function notify. Let's do notify recipients. And this will be in here. And for the general notifications, it's going to be a little easier because we just know that everybody who's on the website needs to receive this notification. So I'm going to put this over here. This is the channel essentially that we're sending the notification to. And I'm going to call it notifications. And I'm going to give it a resource ID, which is kind of like a sub-channel. And I'm going to say here resource ID. And then we are going to say that this should be, let's say, general. Resource ID. And there's a comma here. That's why it doesn't look right. And I like to get rid of these quotation marks like that. Okay. And then in terms of the message that we're going to send, we are going to just send, let's see if we need to send, yeah, we're going to send the entire notification, all the notification data, essentially. So this is going to be notification info. And here as well, we're going to send in the notification info whenever we publish to the channel. And then here we don't really need a dot then, but we should have a try catch. So let's have here await. And here we're going to do try catch, just so we can catch if we have any error sending out this notification. So I'm going to say console.log error sending notification to front end error. Okay. And this notify recipients, we are going to call. Okay, so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to say, yeah, I'm just going to call this. What I'm trying to figure out in my head is how do we deal with the scenario where it's general versus private? Because the way that we handle it here, in terms of the channel at least, is going to need to be a little different. So this function might end up changing a little bit, but for now, let's get this working for the general, and then we can think about how we make it more user-specific. So here, after we create a notification, essentially what we're going to do is we're going to notify the recipients. So I'm going to import notify. Let me copy the name from here so I don't make any mistakes. Notify recipients from backend/notifications. And then here we're just going to say await notify recipients. And we're going to pass in the inserted notification. Awesome. So now that we have sent this notification to the front end, what we need to do is have people actually subscribe to this channel. Because if they're not subscribed, they won't receive messages from it. So what we're going to do is we are going to go to the master page of our website. And that's where we're going to handle all the subscriptions, because master page is the code that runs on every single page of our site. And we don't know where somebody's going to enter our site from. So we want to make sure that we're always covered and they're always subscribed to notifications no matter what page of the site they visit first. So here we're going to be using the Wix Realtime front end, and we're going to be using this subscribe function. So let me copy over this boilerplate code, and I'm going to paste it right over here on top. And I'm going to copy this part and create my own function here on the bottom. So async function, subscribe to real time. And here I'm going to paste that boilerplate code, and let's talk about what we really need and don't need here. So I don't need the subscription ID, not so important for me now. Payload I do need, that is important. I don't need the channel name, and I don't need the publisher. So I don't need all of this. I don't need the subscription ID. I do need the channel. So the channel will be the same channel that we have over here in the backend. So let me just copy that over. And in terms of payload, so here, essentially, this is a callback function that's going to run every time that we publish. So every time that publish in the backend runs, we are going to run whatever is inside of this function. So the payload is going to be our notification info. So I can actually even just change the wording here to notification info, just to be clear. And now we need to decide what we want to do with this notification info. So one thing we want to do is display it here on the bottom, okay, inside of this box. So let's give a name to this box, and we'll call it bottom notification. I'm sure I could think of a better name for that later on. And inside here, we'll have the, if I can select it, there we go, bottom notification text. And what we'll do here is we'll say that, whoops, we need to go back to, oh, sorry, I forgot to do one thing. So this now is pinned to the home page, but I actually want to show this on all the pages of the site. So this needs to be changed here to show on all pages. Okay, because we're going to want to show this notification no matter what page the member is on when they get it. So we're going to, yeah, that's also why the code seemed to be in the home page and not in the master page. Okay, so when you change something to show on all pages, then the code for that element needs to be written on the master page, or on a specific page if you want it to only take effect on that specific page, but that doesn't really make much sense. So here I'm going to say that the notification, bottom notification text dot text should be equal to, and I'm going to take the title and the content and put it just all in one long string. And I'm going to say here that it should be equal to notification info. I could do here notification info dot title, etc. Let's be a little more clean about it. So here we'll have title and content, and this will be equal to notification info. And then here we can have title, and then let's have kind of a colon and the content. Content And then we're going to show our bottom notification. So let's have bottom notification dot show. And we're also going to hide it a short while after we show it because we don't want it showing forever. So you could also have the option to put in kind of like a close button or something like that. I'm going to choose to just leave it for, let's say, I don't know, half a minute. Maybe that's a bit long. I don't know. We'll see in a moment. But let's say bottom notification dot, sorry, this is going to be inside of set timeout. So basically this is code that's going to run after a designated amount of time, which is going to be 1,000 times 30. Okay, 1,000 is 1 second, 1,000 milliseconds, and 30 is 30. So that should be 30 seconds. And then here what we're going to do is we're going to say dot hide. And what we could actually do is separate this into its own function, just for cleanliness purposes. So let's create a new function, and we're going to call it show bottom notification. And all of this is going to happen in here. And here we're just going to take the notification info. And here we're going to say show bottom notification info. That's just for kind of cleanliness sake. And we're going to do one more thing, which is to show our top, let's call it header, 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 what did I call the other one? Header notification. And yeah, that we're just going to be showing. So function show header notification. And this is a little different because this we're not going to hide until it's clicked on. Okay, so this is not going to hide at any point. So essentially it's just, for now, header notification. I don't want to see it yet. Header notification.show. Yeah, this, I mean, the reason I'm putting it in a separate function is because I think that we are going to want to do more things here later on. But for now, it's just that. So here we're going to do show header notification, and we don't need to pass in the notification info because we're not actually, the only thing that we might be displaying here in the future is a certain amount of notifications, but either way that information wouldn't come from this message that we're getting from the real time. So here, yeah, awesome. So this is looking good. So here, this can be await, and let's put this in a try catch as well. And console.log error, and we can say problem, error, subscribing to general channel, and we'll have the error as well. Awesome. Okay, this is looking good. Let's not forget to call this function here. So subscribe to real time inside of the onReady. And this should work for actually anyone who is on the site. They don't even need to be a member at the moment to be part of this whole party here with the general notifications. So let's go ahead and publish this, and it's time for our favorite thing, which is testing. So let me go ahead and view the site and click general notification, and nothing happened. Okay, so I was expecting something to happen there. Let's see why it didn't. So let's go here, console, notification undefined. Okay, that's interesting. So it means that it didn't create the notification. Let me see 1 second. Okay, so it could be, let me see what happened here. So that means most likely that we got thrown here into the catch. So what we want to do is go to our logs, open up site events, and let's try clicking general notification again. And creating notification, notify recipients is not a function. And that is because over here inside of Realtime, I did not export this function. Okay, that happens to me almost every time. So let me go ahead and publish that. And we'll refresh the page. And let's try again with our general notification. Still undefined. And okay, now I think that it just didn't refresh. Okay, so let me try refreshing. I'm going to do a hard refresh on the page and try again. Still no. Still no. Let's see. Notifications.notify recipients is not a function. Still. Let me see. Notify recipients. Let me copy it over and make sure that I'm using uh, create notification. Oh, backend/realtime. There we go. That's why. Okay, you have to make sure to import from the right file. Awesome. So let's try publishing that again. That's always the hardest. When you make two mistakes in exactly the same thing, you're like, okay, I fixed one, it should be working. Awesome. So let's clear the logs and give this page a refresh and general notification. Yay! Okay, so we have here our example notification, and this should be going away soon. I'm gauging now how long half a minute actually is in terms of how it feels. Yeah, it feels pretty long. We probably want to cut that down to maybe 15 seconds. But eventually this should disappear. And now the next thing that we're going to want to do is set it up so that if I click on this, there it is. I guess that was 30 seconds. If I click on that bottom notification, or if I click here in the header notification, then it will go to a page which displays a repeater with all the notifications that pertain to me as a user. Okay, so for our notifications display, let's create a new page. So I'm going to go right over here, add a new page, and it's going to be a blank page. That will be called notifications. And I might need to zoom out a bit here to make things a little more clear. And okay, so on this page, what we're going to do is we're going to have a repeater. And it's basically just going to display all the notifications that pertain to a specific user. So I'm going to go, first let's add in just like a title, notifications, and center that up on top. And I'm also going to add in, let's have this in one section. I'm going to add a new section over here, blank section, and here's where we're going to have our repeater. So let me add in that repeater list and blank repeaters, and let me just add in this very simple repeater. Let's make this a little smaller. I won't focus too much on aesthetics, just kind of get in the basics and center that. Awesome. And let's make it kind of rounded corners. Design corners, just to kind of keep with the theme of the site. And here's where we're going to have each individual notification. So we need to add in all the elements that we want to display in terms of the notification data. So one is going to be a title. So I'll add in a heading 6 and try and select it. There we go. Having some trouble here. Okay, let's change this to, this heading just does not want to be selected. This is going to be the title, and I'll move that to be right up here. And these are rather big. I don't know, you might want to make these smaller on your actual site. But again, this is just really a demonstration. And this is going to be the content of the notification. Let's put that right under the title. And we're also going to add in a button that will be for our call to action. So this is going to be change this, change text and icon. So this is going to be our CTA button. And I use the curly brackets to indicate when something is going to be populated by code. So here, this is going to be populated by the CTA that we have for this specific notification. Because, let's say you receive a notification that's for a blog post, so it could be that's like, check out the blog post. And if you have a notification that's, you know, register for something, then it could say register now or something along those lines. If you don't want to overcomplicate things, you could also just have them all be like view or something like that. Something a little more generic. I think that's all that we need in terms of the data. Let me double check. Yeah, the last thing I'm going to add in is just another text box for the date, because it might be important for somebody to know when that notification was sent out. So let me go ahead and add in a little more text, and this is going to be the date time, let's say, and I'll align that to the right and put it here on the upper right part of the notification. Just align it a little better with the button. Having a lot of trouble selecting my elements today. Okay, never mind. Yeah. Like if I refreshed, maybe it would start working, but anyways. Okay, so here we have the repeater, and before we start writing the on-page code, what we're going to need to do is build out an API that will essentially get all of the notifications that are relevant for a specific member. So let's go back to our backend in notifications, and let's build out that API. So let me zoom in a little bit. I zoomed in enough. Yeah. Okay. So here we're going to have export async function, and we'll call this get user notifications. And for this, we're going to need the Wix member API. So we'll import Wix members from backend / realtime. And Wix members. No, I want current member. Sorry, current member. And this function will be structured depending on what levels of access you want to give people. So if you have an anonymous user on their website and you want to give them access to notifications that are general notifications, then you should build it as I'm going to build it now. But if you want to restrict it so that it's only members can view notifications, even general notifications, then you're going to build this API a little differently, but still the same general idea. So let's say that const member equals to await current member dot get member dot current member dot current member. Let me double check. Wix members API, Wix members backend, current member, get member. Wix. Oh, from Wix. This needs to be Wix. How did that even happen? Okay, current member from Wix members backend, and this needs to be current member dot get member. And the way that it works in the backend, if we take a look here at the documentation, it'll throw an error if the member isn't logged in. So it acts kind of differently between front end and back end. In front end, it'll return undefined, but in the back end, it throws an error. So that means that we're going to want to have a try catch in place here. And here, we're going to have the situation where there's an error, where there's a member, and here's the situation where there's no member. So here is where I'm going to get all of the, let's see, if we have a member. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say let member. I'm going to define the member up here, and then just assign the member if there is a member. And then what we're going to do under this, so here we can say here console.log no member. That's most likely the error that we'll have. And then here what we'll do is we'll define the query, which will be const notifications query result equals to await Wix data dot query. And we're going to be querying the notifications collection. I don't know if you could tell that I'm kind of thinking on the fly here in terms of the structure of this function. And sorry, this notifications. And then we're going to say dot, let's see, dot, Okay, so we're going to need to structure two queries here because basically we're going to need one query for all of the general notifications, and we'll need another query for the member-specific notifications. So first, let's do the general notifications query, and this will be wixdata.query query notifications dot equals type general. So this will get all of our general notifications. And then we'll have another query, which will be the user notifications query. And that will be wixdata.query notifications as well. But it will only be notifications where has some, and this will be recipients, and this will be the member.id. Okay? And we're only going to use this query if we actually have a member. Okay? If we don't have a member, then this query essentially will not be used by us. And that's also why I put this question mark here, because this member is possibly undefined, depending on what comes back here in our try catch. And then after that, we're going to construct our entire query. So we'll say const notifications query equals to general notifications query. And then we'll say if member. So let's say here, we'll say if member, then notifications query dot or, and then we'll have user notifications query, and this needs to be equal. Okay, I'll go over it at the end and explain everything. So that, and then we're actually going to need to run our query. So we'll do notifications query dot find, and we'll suppress auth here. True. And this is going to be assigned to our query result. So notifications, query result. And then here we'll say that our notifications, we'll say, what did I call this? Yeah, user notifications equals to notifications query result dot items, and we'll return user notifications. This needs to be await. Okay, let me go over what I did here. I just didn't want to lose my train of thought. So we defined two queries. One is a query for all of the general notifications, and one is for the user notifications. And you might be a little confused if you're not very familiar with Wix query. Basically, there's the difference between building the query and actually running the query. So here we're just building different queries, and then we can decide if we want to use all of those queries and what the relationship between those queries will be. And when we run the .find, that's when we actually run the query, when we tell the query, okay, go ahead and find everything. So here, essentially what I do is I built out these two separate queries, and then I defined our notifications query, the general overall query that we're going to be running, as essentially just the general notifications query, because that's the query that we're going to run no matter who's on the website. So if it's a member, an anonymous user, in all cases, we're going to let them see the general notifications. And then if we also have a member, then we're going to find additional notifications that are specific to that member. How are we going to find them? Because the recipients array will have that member ID in them. Okay, and that's how we're going to know that this is a notification that this member has permission to view and it's relevant for that member. And then I'm using the OR keyword here, the OR filter, in order to say that we should run both of these queries and return results that match either of them. So this makes sure that it's not a restrictive addition to the query, but it's an expanding addition to the query. So we're also going to get general notifications and also user-specific notifications. And then we run find, and we return all of the notifications that come back from that query. And for now, it's going to return 50 notifications, which I think is more than enough. And awesome. So now we just want to use this in the front end. So let's go back to our page that will display all of the notifications. That's right over here. And we'll create a function which is going to load the notifications. So let's say async function, load notifications. And we're going to need to import the function that we created, get user notifications, it should be. Notifications, make that plural. I lost the page. Notifications from backend / notifications. And here we're going to load the notifications. So we want to say const notifications equals to await get user notifications. And then we'll assign these notifications as data to the repeater. So let's rename this repeater notifications. Why does it have to be such a long word? Repeater. And we'll assign the data to it. Data equals notifications. And I'll also expand the repeater. Expand. And we'll have it as collapsed by default. That way, it'll only show after we've actually loaded our data. So before this actually works, what we're going to need to do is we need to set up a on ready for this repeater, on item ready. So for now, I'm going to do it here in this same function. So let's select the repeater, notifications repeater dot on item ready, and this will essentially dictate what happens when we assign data to the repeater. Item data. And here we can now name all of these items. So here we're going to have notification title. Copy that. And content and button. And the last thing is going to be our date, which I need to zoom out in order to hopefully select this time. There we go. Now I can move it over also. There we go. Date time. Let me zoom back in. And now we just need to assign the data to all of those individual items. So item, title, item, content, item, button. So here we're going to have two things actually. So here we're going to have also the label, which is going to be equal to the item data dot CTA. And we're also going to have the link. Link equals to item data dot URL. And here this is going to be text equals to item data dot title, and text equals to item data dot content. And we also want to do our date time. So item data, item, notification, date, did not save yet. Notification date time dot text equals to item data dot, and this is going to be created at, I think. We can double check that. Basically, we're going to be using the created at, I think it's called, field over here. So this is a system field, a created date. Okay, I'm going to copy that over. And I've noticed when using this created date that sometimes you need to also tap into another property within this created date. That's something like $date. I think that we need to do that. If this doesn't work, then I'll go back one step. Let me add in here console.log item data dot created date, just so we can see that. And this is something we're going to want to turn into to locale date time string, I think. Let's see if that works. If not, we're going to do some looking up. Okay, and then I just need to run this function here when we get to the page. So we set up the notifications page, and now what I want to do is I just want to change this, and we could even, oh, interesting. Okay, we could do it with code. So I'm going to go to the master page, and for the box element, I'm going to set it up over here. So we'll say bottom notification text dot on click, and then here I'll import Wix location frontend, and here we'll have Wix location frontend dot to, and we'll go to the notifications page, which I need to verify is actually this URL. So let me go over here and go to settings, and we're going to want to go to SEO basics and change this to be, oh, I think maybe it can't be notifications because that's the actual name of my site. Let's call it notifications center. And that is going to be the URL that we'll navigate to. Notifications center. And this is going to be something that we're going to do both for the bottom notification text, but also for the header notification text. Oh, bottom notification, not text, header notification. Okay, so now if we click on either this box up here, down here, or on this notification indication up here, then we should be taken to that new notifications page that we just made. So let's go ahead and publish and strap your seatbelts for whatever bugs might come up. So let me refresh the page. Let me clear the logs. And let's inspect here. Cool. So let's send a general notification. Awesome. And now if I click here, then we go to our notification center and awesome. So here we can see all the notifications that we sent already. We sent that many notifications. Wow. That's a bunch. Okay, let's see. Okay, so the date, I was wrong. So the date, you don't need to go into that sub. Just ignore everything I said about that $ date. I definitely had seen it at some point for some date related stuff. Maybe it's only if you have a date field, not one of the Wix generated fields. Okay, let's close some of these. So we're, yeah, notifications page, get rid of this, publish, refresh. Let me try refreshing again. To locale, okay, so this must be wrong. To locale date time string. Okay, let me see. To locale date time string. Let's see. Okay, so you or have date string or have time string. You don't have both. So let's do that. So let's go and let's do this. So I'll open up a template literal. And here we'll have to locale date string, and then we'll have a space, and we'll have the time string. Let's try that. Time string. And publish. And refresh. No, it didn't refresh. I can see that by the error that it didn't refresh. Awesome. Okay, great. So now we have our timestamps there as well. And I see that it is from the most, yeah, so it's from the most recent going back. So that's fine. That's exactly how I would want it to be ordered anyways. So the most recent notification here is on top. And then on the bottom, we have the other notifications. And here, if I click this click me, then it opened the homepage in a new tab because that's the URL that I set for the CTA. Okay, so this notifications page is working. So now we really need to start talking about those user-specific notifications. Okay, so in order to set up the user-specific notifications, I've created two individual memberships on the website for two fake users. And if we go over here to databases, members, and then to private member data, we can see both of these members listed here in the database. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab the ID of one of these members. If you don't see the IDs, you can go to Manage Fields and reveal the system ID. And this is essentially the member ID, and it's what we're going to use inside of this recipients array in order to note who can be a recipient or who should be a recipient of this notification. So let me just paste this ID right over here. So const user1 ID equals to this string. And obviously, this is a simplification of what you're going to be doing in a real scenario, because you're not going to go and manually grab the user IDs and paste them in the code on specific pages. You're going to be getting this ID dynamically through whatever system it is that you're running the notifications through. So, for example, if you have, let's say, different groups on your website, then those groups are all associated with specific members and their member IDs. So you would have to build out an API to get the member IDs of that group and add them to the recipients. Or if somebody clicked on a certain members page, clicked a certain contact button, let's say, so you'd have to, through that members page, get that member ID and then paste it, not paste it, but dynamically insert it using the code. But here, since this is only a test page, I'm kind of doing it manually. So I have the user ID over here, and essentially our user-specific notification is going to look very similar to this notification over here. So I'm going to just copy over this entire function. And here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say example notification. This is a user specific notification, and this, instead of being general, will be private. And here inside of the recipients, we'll have the user one ID. And again, we're going to build it out so that this could be one or more IDs. So at the moment, I'm only putting one ID here, but this could easily be several member IDs here in the array one after the other, and it will work essentially the same way. So now that we are able to create this user-specific notification, let me change this up as well, just so that it looks a little different when we're actually looking at all the notifications together. So let's change it to try me. And it can go to the same URL, that's fine. Okay, so we built out the user-specific notification, and now we need to think about how we are going to send this notification via real-time just to the specific people that are supposed to be updated about that notification. So let's head over here back to our real-time function. And what I'm going to do, at least initially, is I'm going to build a function which will notify recipients based on, so first we're going to check the type of the notification. Okay, so let's do it over here. So let's say if notification info dot type equals general, then we'll have the channel equal to this. So let's go over here and put this over here. If not, so let's declare channel, let channel. And again, this might be able to be refactored later on to look a little better, but we're going to have channel, and then let's say the channel will be this. And else, what we're going to do is I'm going to send it to else. Let's see how we're going to do this. Essentially, what I was trying to do here is that if it was not general, then the resource ID will be equal to the member that we want to send it to. But since our recipient, we could have multiple recipients, essentially we'll have to kind of publish in bulk, which essentially will mean some sort of loop. And then, let me try and think. Okay, so let's do it like this. Let channels equal an array. And then what we'll do is we'll say that if the type is general, then channels dot push, and we'll push in this channel over here, which is the general channel. And if it is not general, then what we'll do is we'll say channels 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 equals to notification info dot notification info dot recipients dot map, and for each recipient, well, for each member ID essentially that we have in the recipients, we're going to turn it into an object which looks like this, which will be notifications, and here for the resource ID we'll have the member ID. Okay, so essentially what we're doing is, in the case where it's general, we're just going to have an array with one channel in it, which is going to be the general channel. If it's not general, then we're going to have an array with multiple, possibly multiple channels, which are based off of the recipients. And then here, what we can do is we can run a loop. So we can say that channels dot for each channel. Then what we're going to do is run this code. Okay, and that way we get to keep our code dynamic, and it should work for both cases. Okay, so this, imagine we have several members here in the recipient. So essentially what it will do is it will loop through all of them, and it'll publish to each of these individual channels with the resource ID of that specific member. So that means all of those specific members in the recipient should get an update, maybe not at exactly the same moment, but one after the other. And I think that should work. I think that should do the trick. And we can actually try it out, but before we actually test it, we have to do one more thing, and that is have every logged in member subscribe to a channel where the resource ID is equal to their member ID. So in order to do that, what we're going to do here is go over here. Let's see, let's go to our master page. And what we can do here is say subscribe to real time. And okay, so let's say this is going to be subscribed to, should this be subscribed to general channel? Let's say subscribe to general channel. Put that over here. And then we're essentially going to have the same thing for subscribe to member channel, let's call it. And for that case, what we're going to do is we're going to use import current member from Wix members front end, current member, and then we'll say here const I'm changing this up a bit because it's also very not dry. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say async function subscribe to real time channels, and then I'm going to say const member equals to await Wix current member dot get member. And then I'm going to say if member, then we're going to say subscribe. Sorry, I'm going to change this to subscribe to channel. Subscribe to channel. And then I'm going to pass in here member dot ID. And I'm going to make this subscribe to channel more generic. So this is going to be the resource ID. And this is going to be passed in as a parameter. So essentially this function, This function stays the same all the time, and we just change out the resource ID to subscribe to different channels. Because we want this essentially to work the same way no matter which channel it is. So this function, nothing changes. There's really no reason to copy it over twice. And this needs to change to subscribe to real-time channels. And then here at the end, we're just going to subscribe to channel and have here general. Okay, here we can have a wait. Here we could also have a wait. And that should cover us. I have a small thing that I'm worried about, and that is that essentially, if we're running this on every page, then we might encounter a situation where we subscribe to a channel multiple times. But we'll figure that out once once it's a problem. There are ways to solve it if that indeed happens. I have encountered that before. So let's just first do a preliminary check and see if everything is working. So let me open up two incognito windows that I have. Okay, so I lied. It's actually only one incognito window and the original window. And here I'm logged in as two different users. Okay, so one of these is user 1 and one of these is user 2. And I don't remember which one is which actually, so this will be a bit of a surprise. But if this works, then when I send the user-specific notification, only one of these two windows should get the indications. So let's try that out. And boom. Okay, so this is user 1 here on the side, and I got the notifications, but user 2 didn't get the notifications because they're user specific. And this has nothing to do with where I click the button, okay? Because you'll see, for example, I forgot to shorten the time for this. Let me go ahead, let me shorten the time for the notification. Let me shorten it to like 5 seconds even, just because it's really only there for demonstration purposes. So let me go ahead and publish that change and go back here just so we can demonstrate things without having to wait 30 seconds for it to go away. So here you'll see that even if I click here for user-specific notification, it still only pops up for this user. Okay, so no matter where I click, and that's because we hard-coded it to pass in the ID of user 1 as the user that we're notifying. Okay, so that's why it's only showing here on the right. Whereas if I press general notification, then it shows for both. Okay, so that's a general notification for both people. And if I click to go to the notification pages themselves, so here you'll see that this user on the left, which is user 2, only has the general notification because we never actually registered them to be sent. We never actually sent them any user-specific notifications, whereas our user 1 has a mix here of some general notifications and some user-specific notifications. Okay, so that is an example of how we would set up general notifications and user-specific notifications. So this is a good point to revisit our scope and see what we've accomplished so far and what are the additional features that we would like to add in to finish up. So in terms of the backend API, we built that out, and we built out the general notifications and user-specific notifications, and we are notifying the recipients with Wix Realtime. We have both indications, and we have our testing page, and we have our notifications page. So essentially what we're still missing is two things that I'm going to add, and that is one, the read by functionality. So we will mark that a certain notification has been read by a user, and we will add the amount of notifications that are not read by a specific user in this kind of upper, what do we call it? Header notification up here on top for this number over here. And those two things are linked to each other because we will only know how many notifications are not read by a user if we're marking the notifications as read. So let's talk about how we're going to do that. So again, like everything we're doing in this project and everything in general, there's usually several ways to do it. The way that I am going to approach it is that when we get our notifications using the get user notification API, if the member is logged in, I'm going to update the notifications that were returned in the query with that with that member's ID. Okay, so here, notifications query result. Okay, we get back the user notifications. And so I'm going to assume that any notifications that came back from this query are now being displayed on the notifications page to the user, and that will indicate that they are read. Okay, it's a bit of an assumption. Maybe you have a better way of deciding what's read and what's not read, but that's going to be my assumption for now. So let me create another function. Function, async function, and this is going to be mark notifications as read. And it's going to take in an array of user notifications, and it's going to take in a member ID. And this is only going to run if we have a logged in member. Okay, so essentially what we're going to say is that if we have a logged in member, so if member, then we're going to say await mark notifications as read, and we're going to pass in the user notifications and member.id. And if there's no member, then we don't mark them as read because we really have no way of keeping track of who the person actually reading the notifications is. And in terms of mark notifications as read, so what we're going to do is we're going to essentially add this member ID to each one of the read by arrays of these notifications. So that means we're going to have to loop through all of the notifications. I'm trying to think if I could do it with a map. I think I could do it with a map. Let's see. Const updated user user notifications to update equals to, and then we'll say user notifications dot map, and then for each notification, essentially we're going to have the original notification, and then we're going to have the read by array, which is going to be the original notification dot read by array, obviously spread in. And then let's move this here into a new line. The read by notifications read by, and here we're going to have member ID. Okay. Yeah, that's better than a loop, I think. And then here we're going to have const updated, or we could just return await Wix data dot update. Update notifications. I'm just going to double check because I really don't want to be debugging because of those kind of typos. Notifications, and we're going to pass in the user notifications to update. We'll suppress off. And that looks great. Okay. A little too simple to be true, but I think that that's good. What I'm going to do here as well is I'm going to limit the notifications query to 10. And in a real life project, I would set up some kind of option for pagination, etc. Just because I don't want there to be too many notifications for it to need to update here. Oh, okay, I realized my mistake now. This is going to be bulk update, not just update. Because update is only for one specific object, but here essentially we have an array of objects that we need to update. So I'm very happy that I caught that. Saved us a little debugging time. Okay, looking good. And then let's test this and make sure it's working. And then we can go to the next step. So I'm going to go back to, I'm trying to think which way I want to do it here. So I want to essentially be logged in as user 1 here. So let me log out. And I'm going to log in again as user 1. thewixwiz.com. Secret password. And oh no, shoot, I want to log in. Not sign up. Not sign up. User 1, login. Oh shoot, I told you the password. But why is this showing general notifications? Let me try refreshing. Okay. So you saw it took quite a while for the query of the notifications, and that's probably because that update is happening. So it took like a little longer than usual, and we can verify it by going to the editor and going into databases, open collection. Okay, so here, I mean, it's interesting to see also the recipients part. So here you can see the recipients, and here you could also see the read by over here. And you can see like this is item number 11, which didn't come back in the query, and it's not marked as read. Okay, so this is working over here. Oh, shoot. Hmm. Okay, there's a bit of a problem. So essentially, I didn't put in any kind of protection so that it doesn't mark it as read by a user that it was already read by. So, what we could do is do this. I mean, there's different ways to approach it. I mean, we could run another query instead and like only query items that were not read. It could be on the notifications page itself. You only want to show things that were not read anyways. But I don't want to do that because I think that'll take more time. Also in terms of like time for querying and displaying the notifications. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say filter the user notifications dot filter, and here we're going to say notification, and we're only going to show if the notification dot read by dot includes member ID. Note. Okay, so we're going to be filtering these user notifications, and we're only going to be, so it's essentially going to be an array of only the notifications that, let's do this down here like this, only the notifications that read by does not include the member ID. Then we're going to map the notifications and add the new read by, and then we'll update. I think that's a solid plan. So let's go ahead and publish that and just double check. First, I'm going to go back to our collection. And I'm going to zoom out and scroll to the right and switch all of these for empty arrays. Nothing like a little manual labor. Okay. Awesome. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to this page and I'm going to refresh. And there we go. And I'm going to refresh again. And I think it should come back quicker this time because there's less of an update going on. Yeah, a little quicker. And let's try again. So now we're going to check the collection. And if there's only one instance of the member ID inside of the read by, then we accomplished our goal. Let's take a look over here. Yeah. Okay, so you see it's only one instance here of the read by. Okay, awesome. So now what we can do is set up the last part, which is essentially to display unread notifications in this, the number of unread notifications in this, in this notification bubble. I keep on losing. I'm at a loss for words as to what to call it. And we're going to do that on the master page. And we're going to do that through an API. So essentially, we're going to have a function over here. Async, let me zoom in. Async function. And we're going to say load check for unread notifications. And then here we're going to need an API. So here I'm going to go to notifications and I'm going to create a new function. So this gets the user notifications. Technically I could use this, but I don't want to. I want to create a new API. So let's add here export async function get unread notifications count. And then we're going to pass in the member ID because this is going to be per a specific member. And then we're going to say, okay, so this is interesting because we need to get specifically the notifications that they're supposed to read but haven't read, because we don't want to count notifications that they're not supposed to read, like for other private users, but that they haven't read. So we can actually use similar logic, similar logic to what we have over here. So we can say, but we can actually, here, let me copy this over. But since we know that this is definitely going to be a logged in member, we could actually just say that, we could actually just say that notifications query result equals to await wixdata.query notifications that equals general and not wixdata.query read by has some whoops, query, what am I doing? Notifications. This has been a long tutorial. Notifications dot has some read by member ID Okay, so we're going to get all the general notifications that were not read by the member. .or this with member ID here instead, and with the same logic of not this. Get rid of all this excess, and let me explain what I wrote here. Not. I need another read by applications. Not this. Oh, so the function isn't. It was driving me crazy. Okay. Okay, so this is a little ugly. I would probably change that later on at some point, but basically we're going to query notifications where either the type equals general, um, and it has some, and it does not have some read by the member, or we're going to be querying for when the member is part of the recipients, but it wasn't read by them. Okay, so we're going to query for all those notifications. And here, instead of running .find, I'm going to run .count. And this should just return the number of items that answered that query. Let me double check that. I want to see if it's limited also to 1,000 or not. Even though if somebody has 1,000 notifications, then there are some other problems going on there. Okay, whatever. It doesn't matter. Worst case, the max that it'll show here is 50 notifications. I think that's pretty standard. Like, if eventually it says like only 99 plus or something like that, it doesn't tell you exactly how many notifications you have. So we can say that, yeah, it could just be, yeah, if it's more than that, then it's more than that. Okay, so we'll just return the notifications query result. And we're going to use this in the front end on the master page. So here, let's import this from Wix members front end. Always tell me Wix members from backend / notifications. No, there's something weird with the autocomplete there. It's something unintuitive is going on there, I think. Anyway, get unread notifications. So const. Okay, so let's say member equals to await current member. If no member, then we're just going to return. We're going to exit this function because we can't check for unread notifications for non-members. Sorry. And then we're going to say const notification unread notification count equals to await check for get unread notification count, and then we'll say if unread notification count, which essentially is the same as saying that it's above 0, then we are going to say that this text over here should be equal to that amount. So let's give it a name. Unread notification count. So unread notification count dot text equals to unread notification count dot toString, because this is going to come back as a number. Oops. And we can only send strings to text elements in Wix. And we're going to show it. We're going to show this, which is called header notification dot show, because it's hidden by default. So if there are notifications for that user that are pending, then we'll show it, even when a user just first reaches the site. Otherwise, it just won't be shown. And yeah, so let's run this as well over here. So subscribe to real-time channels, and then we'll check for unread notifications. Okay, let's try it out. So published, and let's close one of these. And let's go to the home page and load it up. Let's see. Okay, nothing happened. Which could mean that we have all the notifications read, but it also could mean that we have an error, and that seems to be the case. And that is probably because I forgot, even before I checked the errors, I forgot to put here suppress off. So I have a feeling that that's the error. Let's see what the log says. That's not important. Invalid has some usage. Oh, okay, that's another problem. Okay, so here I was supposed to pass the member ID into the get unread notifications count function, but I did not. So here we're going to need to pass the member.id. Let's try that again. I think we would have stumbled on the other bug anyways, but I freeze. Yay! Okay, so that seems to be working. Let's try it. Let's send out some general notifications. Awesome. Let's send a user-specific notification. And okay, so one thing you'll see is that it's not updating here. I need to think about how complex it would be to do that. No, it actually would not be so complex. All we would have to do essentially, well, let's first see if this is working. So I'm going to refresh. And yeah, so now it's showing me 4. And essentially to get this to work, all I think we would have to do here is to run this check for unread notifications after we get a new notification here. So what we could do is yeah, we could do this here. Oh, we could essentially do this even instead of show bottom notification. Oh, show header notification. Instead of showing the header notification, we could actually check for unread notifications. Assuming, oh, do we have the member ID? Oh, that's only in the case where it's a member ID. So what we could do here is, what we could do here is, show a header notification. We could just do both for now. I'm going to be lazy. It could be we could find some kind of workaround, but essentially it'll always show the header notification, and then if there's a logged in member, it'll also check for the unread notifications. Let's try doing that. I'll refresh. And awesome. Let's try sending out a general notification. Hmm. Why didn't it update? Oh, okay. It just took a while for the real time to kick in, I think. Let me try again. Yeah. Okay, it is working. Okay, so there you see like the 7 is it's updating. Okay, awesome. I'm pretty pleased. Yeah, there are still definitely things that can be changed here. For example, like if we go to the notifications page, it's still only going to load the 10. Oh, it's 10 most recent notifications. So then if I load this, let me try refreshing. Will this show 0? 1. Okay. There's stuff to work out here. It's not a complete system. There are definitely some logic that needs to be added here. At what point do we stop showing people a certain notification, pagination between notifications, and definitely it's lacking the critical step of actually setting it up so that the notifications are sent when you want them to be sent, like so when a certain action is taken on the site, or if a certain, you know, Wix app does something on the site and you want to send out the notification. So that's one step that you're going to have to complete yourself. But I do hope that this tutorial gave you a good direction in terms of how to set up a custom notification system on your Wix website. I don't encourage taking the code and copying it letter for letter from the tutorial. I do encourage kind of thinking about your specific use case and what you need to do on your website. And my code might help and it might not, and you might need to think of a slightly different system for your use case. But I do hope that this was at least interesting and thought-provoking. If you like this video, don't forget to like, and if you have any questions, you can comment below. And if you want to see more videos kind of like this one, different Wix and Velo related topics, updates about new changes to the Velo API reference, or kind of thought-provoking tutorials like this one, then you can go ahead and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you next time.